Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Guillermo Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a very special guest making their official debut here on the show. Now, my guest today's path to authorship is as gripping as the story he tells. Wrongfully accused and imprisoned, he was cut off from the world, but not from his imagination. With no access to computers or traditional writing tools, he seized what little he had to buy notebooks and pencils, crafting Shatter entirely by hand, page by page. Fantasy became both his escape and his way to reclaim his identity. What started as a lifeline in confinement evolved into a raw, personal exploration of fate, power, and self-worth. Shatter isn't just a novel. It's a bold testament to the power of storytelling, born from injustice and transformed into art. Now free, he's dedicated to sharing his voice and world, proving that even in the darkest places, creativity not only survives, it thrives. So, without further ado, viewers and listeners, let's give a huge round of applause to our very special guest here on the show, Mr. Nicholas Wolfe. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Nicholas. I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Now, before we begin, I have a little icebreaker question for you. What is a little known fact about you as an author that many people might not know?
Little known fact about them 6'5".
Nice, very, very nice. I'm 5'11", so you are definitely taller than me.
People like people that have seen my face that know me, they'll see me and then I'm like, man, I didn't know you were that tall.
Awesome. Awesome. And again, Nicholas, I'm so excited to have you here and talk about your book. I did have a chance to read a little bit of it. I plan on finishing reading it fully soon and posting a review on it on my blog. But I just got to say, without spoiling too much, I don't want to spoil anything yet. But I will say, reading it and looking back at your bio, I can tell that you really put every bit of yourself into this story. The characters, world building, the themes, which we will cover later in the interview. Everything that is you, Nicholas, is in this book. And I absolutely love that as a reader that I can see into the author's world. So thank you so much for that.
I appreciate that, man. It warms my heart knowing that you guys get that kind of enjoyment out of what I've written. So that's what it's all for.
Awesome. Now, as a little window into Shatter, without spoiling too much, Nicholas, what can readers expect from this book?
So I really focused on trying to take you out of your environment, put you in an entirely different world, because as I was writing it, that's what I was trying to do with myself. Being incarcerated is definitely not for the weak-hearted, but there's a lot of things that go on that you want to separate yourself from. So I did the best I could in writing Shatter as my lifeline to pull me away from all of the negativity. So when I wrote that, my goal was to the reader to pull you out of your current environment. Like, I want to get you immersed in this new world.
Nice. Very, very nice. Now, as from your bio, Shatter really came from and actually found its birth while you were incarcerated. But I'm very curious, from that point onward, what really put you on this path to making the decision to publish it as opposed to keeping it as a personal story for yourself?
Um, I want to say about I became a very avid reader during that incarceration, for obvious reasons. Reading, takes the brain out of its current predicament, and I became a fan of reading. But that that aside, I would I would say probably because like 2 or 3 pages in, like I couldn't stop. I don't know how to explain that.
Mm,
I started writing, and little did I know, like, but like I felt like this was just meant for me. You know what I mean? And like my hand could not keep up with my brain, and I was writing sun up to sundown. It was just it was a phenomenal experience for me, and it just felt like this was something I was meant to do. So I had that on my mind after Shatter was written. I'm just like, I have to do this. Like, I've never felt anything stronger.
nice. All right. So now let's go into the behind the scenes of Shatter, see how the story, the world, and the characters came about. So, as you were writing the initial draft, before you made the decision to publish it, Nicholas, what really surprised you about the writing stage of Shatter?
What really surprised me probably would have been the fact that the book, like, I got so many pages in it, I felt like it just started writing itself.
Mm,
Like, I'm writing it, but I'm like reading it, going through it like I'm a reader. Like, yo, did that just happen?
nice. Very, very nice. Now, from that point, how did the name Shatter come about? Was that the initial name that you started with, or was it a series of trial and errors to really find the title that really resonated with the story?
I was writing the book, and I hadn't decided on a title, but during the process of writing, it kind of just came to me. Like, it's a constant theme throughout that book, and like once you open it up and read, you'll see why, the title is relevant. And I actually did the same thing. I'm working on book 2 right now, and book two's title just revealed itself to me as well. I didn't choose it. It kind of just popped up on its own.
Nice. Very, very nice. Now, let's talk about routine and rituals. I know some authors have their own, some authors don't. What about for you, Nicholas? Did you have a routine that really worked for you in the sense of only writing certain amount in the day? Are you more of a morning writer, an evening writer, a mix of both?
I'm more of a morning person in general. Back then, I did not have a routine. It was kind of, in that environment, just do what you can, how you can, when you
Hmm.
can. But now I do have a routine. I love to get up in the morning, get a cup of coffee. I think I can only imagine all writers probably do that. And then I lock myself in a room with lo-fi, and we just go in.
Nice. And probably the most important question at this point in the writer's process, would you consider yourself a outliner slash planner or a pantser?
Mm, that's a good question. Probably a planner. Because like I was saying before, like my hand can't keep up with my brain, so my brain is like two, three, 4 chapters down the road, and I'm still writing this. So I think I would have to be a planner.
Same. I tried being a pantser for my latest book where I had to rewrite everything. It worked and I was happy with it, but I realized I can't do this. I can't do this. It doesn't work for me. I like having an outline. Yes, I tend to deviate from time to time, but to create several new chapters, what originally was supposed to be 21 made like 64. That was
Woo.
not easy to do. And I commend my fellow authors who are able to write that way. It just doesn't work for me. I can't pants my entire story. I have to have a nice outline to keep me organized and structured. And now we actually arrive into our first fan question, Nicholas. And that is, ooh, okay, this is a good one to start with. Out of the characters in Shatter, who is probably your favorite character to write and who is the most difficult to bring to life?
Mm, I I think those are the same character, to be honest.
Ooh,
The old man. The old man in Shouter was probably the most difficult and my favorite to write. He's the most difficult because he has this air of mystery around him without saying too much. He never says too much. So you gotta craft a personality out of very few words.
mm,
But he's my favorite because he's like this no nonsense type of individual. He's got like age and wisdom, and like the things that he does say are heavy. So he would probably be the most difficult and my favorite to write.
Nice. Okay. All right. And as you were writing this story, and of course, editing it and revising it, what ultimately was your goal with this story that you plan to take over into book two?
Mm, Again, it would probably have to be removing the reader from their current environment, circumstances, whether you're having a hard time or whether you're just looking for enjoyment. I'm trying to bring you into this world, pull you out of yours and bring you into this world. Like I want you completely submersed where like somebody says something to you and you're like, what did you say? You know, like
Mm,
are they even speaking English right now?
all right. Okay. And jumping off of that, from the author's perspective to your readers, what is the promise you're making to not just you, of course, as the first reader, but also your future readers at that time before you published and now going into book two?
So two different promises? Or
So I guess you can view it as like an overarching promise for readers who pick up this book.
this is gonna be a wild ride.
Love it. Nice. Very, very nice. And kind of still in the realm of, the behind the scenes, another fan question, and actually a new one that I actually got for this particular interview. What was probably the most stressful moment you've ever encountered when you were writing this book?
Stressful moment I encountered when writing this book. Let's see. Mm, I feel like that's an unfair question because writing, like, because of my particular circumstance, writing this book was de-stressing. This was
Okay.
my escape into from my current situation. So this was therapy for me. Um, but I would have to say, like, telling my story while trying to hit all aspects of what I know readers like and appreciate. Because you have romantasy readers, you have fantasy readers, you
Hmm.
have people that are very plot driven, you have people that like all different kinds of things. So like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have to tell this story, and I'm gonna tell my story, but how can I encompass the most readers in here?
Absolutely. Very true. And that's something we're going to be touching on when we get to the business side of being an author. And now, kind of moving forward in the journey, once you refined it, edited it, at what point did you tell friends and family that you had worked on this project? And if you did send it out to beta readers and ARC readers, what was the general reaction like from them? Was it positive, very critical, or a 50-50 split?
I would say friends, family were the first people to see it. I would say that it was disbelief because prior to this, like you would not have seen me writing a book. I actually grew up playing sports my whole life. Went to college and was pretty good in school, so I had a future that way. Writing a book probably would have been least likely for me. So
Mm,
a lot of my friends and family were like, "What? No way! Like you wrote a book," but it wasn't negative. You know what I mean? It was just more surprise and shock. And then I had a friend of mine who read the book and he happened to be into marketing and he was like, yo, like, what are you doing with this? This is actually pretty good. And so he's the one that kind of helped me get everything together. So I would say like getting everything on social media and getting the beta
mhm.
readers and all that, it probably wasn't, I'm not gonna say it wasn't hard, but it wasn't as hard as somebody just like starting from scratch because I did have that help from my friend who's a social media
Right.
marketer. He doesn't necessarily market books, but like he had insight into this world already. So he's the one that helped me with my website and all kind of stuff. So it was easier than just coming at it alone for sure.
All right. All right. And the next fan question. Now, you've already talked about your favorite character and character that was challenging to bring to life. Now, let's talk about favorite scenes. So, in this book, Without spoiling too much, what was probably your favorite scene to write? And secondly, what was probably the most challenging scene to write?
Mm, favorite scene to write. Favorite scene to write is probably the end of what you could call the training arc. And it represented such a profound moment for the main character. He had worked so hard to attain something that seemed impossible, and this is towards the beginning of the book. And so it was like a moment of, okay, like I accomplished my goal, and now I realize like I haven't even started.
Mm.
So that was probably my favorite. And then you said the most challenging scene to write would probably be the element of like, and I'm going to say element of romance. So not just one scene, but those particular scenes, because I feel like men and women see those things differently. So I wanted to write them to where they would be realistic to both audiences, you know?
Hmm.
So, but I only have the mind of a man, so that's all I can see. So I had to do my best I could to try to bring my female characters to life in those moments to where it would be realistic and would be felt by my audience of women. So,
I agree. There's actually a scene in one of my books, Son of Persia, which is a romance scene. And I remember a friend of mine was reading it live on Instagram, and she had to go off camera a bit, but she was in tears, almost in tears, because it was so beautifully written. And she messaged me saying, "You told me you couldn't write romance. This is romance." It's like I just wrote a scene that I felt was appropriate for the story, because I can't write romantasy, or rather, I choose not to write romantasy or a romance novel. There will be romance in it, but I'm not going to write a book solely in that genre. That's not my wheelhouse. And again, genres and understanding our genres is something that we're going to be covering when we get into the business side. Before we get to that, we now enter the reflective questions. And as sort of icebreakers for this segment of the interview is probably a double trouble question, Nicholas. And that is, of course, dealing with imposter syndrome and the writer's block. Now, as I'm sure you have seen and experienced and probably talked with many other authors, those two are a double whammy. You have writer's block, which will sometimes hinder our process of telling stories, and then imposter syndrome, which will make us reflect on ourselves and make us wonder, are we in the right field? Should we even be writing, or whatever the case may be? And a lot of authors that I've had the opportunity to speak with have shared stories of friends and colleagues completely abandoning writing because they realized it's not for them, or they chose to believe that writing wasn't for them. So for you, Nicholas, as you were writing Shatter Me, and as of course redeveloping it, refining it, and getting ready for publishing, how did you deal with those two?
so one quick correction: it's not Shatter Me, it's Shatter.
Shatter.
No
My
no
apologies.
worries, no worries. Writer's block I never got. I'm not gonna lie. And I think it again, it might have been due to the situation. So, and like it took its own life. Like I had to stop myself from writing because I was like, when I was inside, I'm like, well, what if a publisher likes this? Because I'm very intentional when I write. Every little thing means something. So I'm like, what if like somebody's like, well, I need you to change this, and I'm like, but I can't change this because then I got to change that and change that.
Mhm.
So I was just like, maybe I should stop writing. After book one, I had to force myself to stop writing. I never really experienced the writer's block. And to that end, neither did I experience imposter syndrome. It was fun for me. It was just creative. And then I've grown in that sentiment as well. Like I feel like everyone has a story to tell. Like you're not an imposter. This is your story. You're not telling somebody else's story. That would make you an imposter. You have a story to tell. This is on your mind. Put it out there. You know what I mean? And I kind of take a stance behind that. I love that. Like, you're not an imposter. This is what your imagination created, and you give it life.
Very true. Very well said, Nicholas. So now we go into the reflective segment of the interview. And the first question is, of course, what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? Because, as I'm sure you would definitely agree, being an author now is very different to as it was 10, 20 years ago. Social media has definitely changed the game for the publishing industry. I mean, before social media was as dominant as it is now, I mean, traditional publishing was still and is still, the major form of publication. Uh, Independently published and hybrid publishing was seen as a lesser form, but now it's like on par with traditional publishing. And when it comes down to authors, social media is a huge tool to help us use and promote our books. As you mentioned earlier, you had a friend who worked in marketing who was able to give you the tips and tricks and tools to help with promoting your book, getting your website ready, and everything like that. So you already had a little bit of an edge. But as I'm sure you will also agree, social media is very draining. It's very taxing. We leave ourselves exposed to the internet. And sometimes we get hit with the brunt force of the negative side. So I'm very curious, Nicholas, with all that said, what has still disciplined you to not only promote Shatter, but also make the decision to continue this series and make a second book in the series?
Mm, so piggybacking off of earlier when I was saying that people have stories to tell and you tell that story, um, I have a story to tell, and I'm gonna tell it. We started it. You know, my parents raised me like, if you start something, you gotta finish. So it has started, and I definitely want to finish it. And it's as enjoyable for me to write as I would hope it's enjoyable for you guys to read. But that said, I have to get it done. It has to be done, and if it goes over well with everybody, I actually have a few ideas that I would love to be author to. So hopefully there is a long career ahead of me, but we'll take it one day at a time. And social
Awesome.
media definitely helps you connect with everybody out there. Negatives on social media. I don't give it too much life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's different people like different things. So I realized when I saw somebody give Red Rising a 1 star, I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's no way and this is just based off of my type of reading style, right? I'm like, so if somebody gives the Red Rising a 1 star, like that just goes to show that you're gonna have those people everywhere. Or even I've seen Patrick Rothfuss, Name of the Wind. He writes so beautifully to me. You know what I mean? I've seen him get 1 star reviews. Lord of the Ring has 1 star reviews. You know what I mean? So as far as dealing with negativity, I keep that in mind. You can't reach everybody. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
So the goal is to find your niche of people and ride with them. And those people will introduce you to more people that will enjoy your style of authorship. So never make that mistake of trying to please everybody. And I think social media will become a lot healthier of a mental space for you, because you
Mm-mm.
won't be so focused on what each and every person has to say versus, how you're being received by the type of people who like your work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now another fan question, which is actually a tweak on an original question I had planned for this interview, Nicholas. And one of my reviewers and commenters would like to know, in your own opinion, do you believe that we are in a golden age of authors, indie authors?
Golden age of indie authors. Explain by what you mean by golden age.
Of course, of course. So my viewer and commenter who has watched a good majority of my videos pretty much summarize a point I was making in these videos by saying a lot of the authors that have been featured on the show, especially since last year, all began their writing careers at the height of the pandemic of COVID. And during that period of isolation, a lot of these authors, including myself, began writing and creating stories. And as a result, when things started getting a little bit better, the floodgates were open, and soon you had a tidal wave of new voices. And a lot of people argue, and my commentary reviewer is one of them, believe that because of these new voices that have entered into the industry, we have now reached a golden age. Now, some have argued that we are more so in an iron age as opposed to a golden age, because now we're able to sort of see who is actually passionate about growing in this industry, building a career, as opposed to just writing a book for the sake of writing a book. So that is what this viewer means, and what I refer to as a golden age.
I would say it is probably in between a golden age and an iron age, right? Because it is a beautiful time to be a writer. You know what I mean? I think this is one of the best times you could be a writer, especially due to social media. And like you just mentioned, I directly correlate that through what I went through. Like I wasn't out here in the world for the pandemic, but isolation is what brought life to this book. And so you guys went through your own form of isolation with COVID, and that helped give life to all you guys' creations. So in that sense, I think, yeah, this is a golden age for sure. And then there's arguments to be made for the Iron Age as well, because like you said, there are people that write just like writing fluff and don't really mean it and stuff like that. So like when because I'm very supportive of the indie author community. So I do read indie author books as well because I am an indie author. So, you want to be a part of that culture. But I have read some books from indie authors. It's like, did you even try? Like, is this like, are you doing this to say you did it? Or are you doing this because this is something you want to do and something you believe? So on that front, I would say that we're still at an iron age, because there's not an imposter syndrome, but just how you get the things in life where like, oh, he did it, so I want to do it. You know what I mean? Eventually that I feel like that'll die down, and only the people that really want to write because they enjoy the art form of writing will be predominant, and then will be fully into that golden age. But I do believe the golden age is kind of here just because of how we're able to connect with others and get our work out there. So I would say it's like more so leaning towards the golden age. But yeah.
Absolutely. Now, another fan question, which is a really, really good one. This contra reviewer asks, in your opinion, Nicholas, do you believe that in today's digital age for authors, it's never been more easier to get published, but it's never been more difficult to get noticed and to market oneself?
It's never been easier to get published, but it's never been more difficult to market. So I'll address the second one first. It is very difficult to market yourself because there's so much already out there. You got to join social media. You got to find your niche. You got to find these people. Organic growth is probably the best route to go at first. You don't want to just dump thousands of dollars into ads for them to have no effect. You have to have that social proof out there first, proving that you are a real person. This is a real book and people have real things to say about it. So marketing yourself it's definitely difficult, especially if you don't have the right tools. Like I feel very grateful that I have my friend, but just imagining people that don't have my friend, that do come at this themselves. They write their own book, they create their own website, they create their own book trailers, they do all of those things, and it's just one person. So it is very difficult. And then as far as becoming, like, you mean publishers and like publishing your own book, or being picked up by like a traditional publisher?
I think in this regard, I think to publish, if you're specifically looking at it as an indie author, there are so many different avenues to be published. I mean, you can publish on Barnes and Noble, you can publish on Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, Google Play, Draft to Digital. There are so many avenues to be self-published. And I think the getting picked up by an agent would fall under the marketing, because you really have to promote and
Right.
sell yourself to really get a marketer's attention.
Right. Okay. So yeah, then I agree with both those statements. Then I address the second one and the first one. Yeah, it's never been easier. There's so many different platforms that'll help you. Like that getting published on those websites, like I would anybody just start with Ingram Spark, because they'll get you to more than just one place. They'll get you on Target, Walmart, like all those different places. Of course, you want to go with Amazon, but it is extremely easy, and they even help you like with formatting to some extent. Like, hey, don't put your book out like this. We have guidelines for books. So compared to 20 years ago, it's definitely way easier to get your book published.
Definitely, 100%. And now we're actually going to go into the business side of being an author. Now, you've already touched on this a little bit, Nicholas, in terms of, marketing your book, Shatter. But I'm very curious, looking back on how you promoted Shatter initially, as you write book two, is there anything that you would do differently for that book that you wish you did for its predecessor?
I'm gonna take it much slower. So when I did my marketing, I did and mind you, I had just got out, so I didn't know a lot of these things. And my friend he doesn't market books, so we're both learning. And I think we did the whole marketing segment with trailers and teasers and artwork. I think we did all that in the period of like maybe 3 weeks. And what I've learned now is that it is much better to tease these things out over the period of months. Like I've seen authors just for a book cover reveal take 1 or 2 months just to reveal the book cover, let alone the process of finishing the book and actually releasing the book. And it builds a lot more hype that way, and it can attract a lot more attention that way. You get a lot more time to find beta readers that way. So I think going into book two, I will definitely slow that part of the process down tremendously.
All right. And now let's talk about another big thing about the business side of being an author. And that's, of course, understanding one's audience. Now, as I'm sure you'll definitely agree, Nicholas, you and I, as the authors of our books, know it better than anyone else. But as we make the decision to publish our works, we then have to consider, okay, we've written this work, this body of work that we've put our heart and soul into it. Where exactly does this belong? And a lot of research goes into understanding the genre that works best, and also understanding, well, who exactly is going to pick this up, what readership. And at that point in the journey, we find ourselves in another precarious scenario where we have to balance our authenticity as the author, but also being mindful of the genre that we're trying to get into, because each genre has a set of circumstances that readers expect. You don't want to write a book that's too familiar. It's going to be seen as a knockoff version. We don't want to write something that's too new that it's going to throw people out of whack and be completely confused. It's that sweet spot in the middle. So ultimately, for Shatter, how did you balance those two respectfully to really highlight your voice as the author, but also your knowledge of the genre that you are writing in?
Mm, instead of choosing to, I knew I was going with fantasy, obviously, but instead of choosing to focus on strictly fantasy, I chose to focus on extremes. And what I mean by that is that I get different enjoyment out of different books. And so I was like, okay, well, why don't I combine the enjoyment I get out of these different books all into one book? So I wanted to give you in my book, I love battle scenes. So I wanted to give you very vivid battle scenes. But
Oh, yes.
and then at that same time though, I love a good book that'll make you think, like, hold on, what did you just say? Like, and maybe some principles that'll apply to your real life. So I threw a lot of that in there. I love books where character relationships are round tight and you don't know what's going to happen between these two or three characters. And I love books where they can immerse, like there's a big world, like world building. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that I chose to focus on rather than just like what's acceptable in this genre, what's not acceptable. I picked those kind of things and it's like, all right, well, let me go extreme with this type of thing. So extreme character relationships, extreme battle scenes, extreme environment. Like, you know what I mean? I chose
Yeah,
to go that route. You know, let's do some things that are really going to provoke some thoughts that you could possibly use in your real life.
absolutely, 100%. And I love how you said battle scenes. That's instantly right in my wheelhouse. I love writing very vivid cinematic battle scenes and fight scenes. Although I've had to tone it down a few times, but as I'm sure you'll definitely agree that those are among the many favorite scenes to write in books, especially if that is what you are wanting to show in your writing, how the characters and sometimes the villains fight and lead those fights, whether it's one-on-one, grand battles with large armies, or a small company of heroes or villains, or mix of both, depending. I love battle scenes. I love fight scenes in storytelling. And sometimes it also helps to share these ideas with fellow authors and see if it works best for the story. And that leads into the discussion of networking, which is so vital, especially if you're an indie author. Now, Nicholas, I would like to hear your thoughts and your experiences with networking as an indie author yourself, and if there are some specific people or groups you would like to give a shout out to who have helped you on your journey with Shatter and the next books in the series.
So I've had I like to, again, I like to tone out the negative, so I don't really pay negative too much mind. So I'm definitely going to give a shout out to a few people here. But as a whole, my experience with the bookish community is amazing. You know, there's a bunch of indie authors out there. There's a bunch of people who support indie authors out there. And if you can get into that, it's like we're all one big group. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think at least 400, maybe 500 of my followers all follow the same 500 people. Like it's a very good, tight group. And I remember at one point there was somebody pirating books, and then the whole community was just like,
Ooh.
"Hey, watch out for this account!" And and everybody had everybody's back. So it's something you can definitely appreciate, because at the end of the day, we're strangers, we don't know each other, but we grouped up like we were all family. Like, hey guys, this is what time it is. So first and foremost, I have to give a big shout out to Georgiana Hahn, book reviews, bookworm reviews 97, I think it's her tag.
Mm-hmm.
She is the artist and helps bring all of my work to life. So she read my book and actually approached me like, hey, this is what I see. And like she pulled what I see straight out of my mind. So I'm like, look, I'm with you, you're with me. Like let's do this. So I definitely want to give one of the biggest shouts out to her. And I have my own little group chat called The Lost Ones. I love each and every one of them. They have been so supportive through this process for me. And they're not only there for me, they're there for each other. They're a bunch of positive people. So I definitely big shouts out to The Lost Ones, guys. I love you guys. And yeah, man. There's tons of people out there that I'm grateful to have had help me through this whole entire process.
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe book reviewer 97, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she should be coming onto the show very, very soon. I actually reached out to her, and I do plan to have her hopefully for this month's lineup, or part of March's lineup. So fingers crossed for that, because I've seen her do a lot of great things for the bookish community. She has done so many great things. And yes, I cannot wait to have her on the show. A lot of people have said so many nice things about her that I cannot wait to hear her side.
Gigi is definitely an amazing person. You guys are gonna have fun with that show.
Nice. Very, very nice. And now we get into what I like to call some rapid fire fan questions. And I actually love this segment of the business side because it's a really, really fun little playful set of questions. Now, the first rapid fire question, as an author, Nicholas, in your opinion, of the five physical senses, which, in your opinion, is the most difficult to emulate in storytelling?
Mm, touch.
Hmm,
Because
that's a good one.
I would have to say touch. Because when you have these massive worlds, like a lot of the times you haven't touched any of these things that you're talking about. Um, like giant oak trees. Not too many people have touched a giant oak tree. So trying
Mm-mm.
to bring that sensory information across could be kind of challenging. Where there's a spot in my book where I talk about like a rocky alcove cave almost kind of place. Never been in one, never would go because I'm not experimental like that. But trying to explain those things to the touch sense would be difficult, not having touched them myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next one. Ooh, okay. This one's one of my favorites. This one's one of my favorites. As a reader, specifically, what do you find more interesting or fascinating, themes or tropes in storytelling?
Ooh. That's not fair. I guess it depends. It would have to depend on the book and the author and how attached I get to the characters. Because if I love the trope, then I'm riding with the trope. I don't care what the book is about. I'm riding with the trope. But if I don't find myself too attached to the characters, then I would probably go theme.
All right. And still on this little topic, in your opinion, which is probably the most underused trope in fiction and the most overrated trope in fiction?
Overrated, overrated, and underused. Hmm. Overrated would probably be. Woo! You got a difficult one there. Overrated, I'm gonna say enemies to lovers. I know that's gonna draw some wind, but enemies to lovers because it's just like you can almost see it every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is true.
You can almost see it every time. So like keeping that hidden from especially avid readers, they're like, I didn't see this one too many times. They're definitely a thing. And underused. Hmm, underused. I don't know. I don't know about underused because I don't feel like I don't feel like I've got enough tropes under my belt to have an opinion on underused because I read a lot, but then there's like everybody has different little nuances in their tropes, so it's not exactly the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I can't call underused.
All right, that's fair. That is very fair. Next one. Ooh, another good one. For, let's say, the top three main characters in Shatter. If those characters had a theme song, what theme song would they have?
Theme song. Um, all three of them, huh? It would be. Am I restricted to like genre? Am I restricted to like? Are we talking just lyrics? Are we talking beats? Are we like? What are we?
It can be anything. It could be instrumental. It can actually be like a specific song sung by a singer, or it could be beat. Any type of music, any genre of music. What theme song would fit well for one of the top three characters in your book?
One of or all three? Like
Let's go with the first three. The first three main characters.
I'm gonna say Give me a good song for. Man, you put me on the spot with that one. I want. Give me something action. Every time these three are together, there's issues. I don't want to say that one. Oh, I want to get it right. I want to get it right. Let's just go. I'm gonna go classical here, or not classical, but I'm gonna go old school. Let's go Eye of the Tiger.
Ooh, that's a
Go
good
Eye of
one.
the Tiger. Good, well known, and it's you're definitely about to get into some action here. It's the thrill of the fight.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Any other theme songs you can think of that would work?
You make it so hard. I listen to so many genres of music, and then as of lately, I've just been like listening to lo-fi, so now I'm like words. Just the beginning of what is that song? Crazy Train. Like, the is that the name? I think that's the name of the song, just the beginning where it's got the like upbeat tempo kind of part.
Okay.
Or there's the one Rihanna song too, like you could go with, arguably. What song is that? What song is that?
It's not an easy question.
It is not. You just that I wish I would have prepared for that one, because I feel like I could have like the perfect song. Just give me a minute. But Run This Town by Rihanna and Jay-Z would be a good one.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's another good one. And while this one's not for one of the main characters, as I remember, this is early in the book that you mentioned, the training sequence. That actually reminded me of, and I don't know why I didn't make the comparison. I was listening to Hearts on Fire, the song from Rocky 4, and that reminded me, the training sequence reminded me of much of that song. So again, yeah, it's not for a main character. Well, yeah, kind of. It more so reflected that scene.
Right. I could definitely see that. Well, that's why I was saying there's just so many songs that could be applied. I'm like, how do I just pick one song?
Yeah, it's not easy. It is not easy. The struggles of an author. And on that topic of struggles, that definitely leads into the last two questions of the rapid fire round. But these two are arguably probably the most, I don't want to say challenging or difficult, but very reflective and thought provoking. And I'll lead up to this question, or these questions. So, as I imagine, when you were writing Shatter, you had so many ideas that you wanted to put into book one, but you also made a decision to write it into book two, potentially book three, four, and five, however many books you want to tell this incredible story with these characters and possibly some new characters that are introduced later on. And I imagine at some point in your journey, there are probably days where you maybe went back to change a few things or had doubts of whether or not the finished version was the correct version, or maybe the opposite. So ultimately, Nicholas, this is a two-part question. The first part is, when did you know when to stop writing Shatter?
So there was a cliffhanger moment at the end of Shatter. Well, I'm not going to say what happens, but there's a cliffhanger moment, and that felt like the perfect place to stop. But just to enlighten you guys a little bit, so Shatter was originally in my mind a 3-book series, but as I was writing the book, an idea came to me, and I'm like, should I do this or should I not do this? And I hadn't made up my mind, so I wrote the book as if I did not do it, and I was thinking about it, and then I got to talking to family and friends. I didn't tell them what happened. I'm just like, I can make this into possibly 7 books with this idea that I have. Should I do that? Should I not do that? And like every single one of my family members was like, yeah, go for the 7. So I'm like, you know what? Like I finished Shatter and then I went back and I'm like, okay, we're adding this in here. And like it fit. You wouldn't even know what I added because it fit flawlessly. So Shatter is gonna be about seven books ish. But yeah, that was like the only little add in I had. Like the stopping point, like I said, it was just it was a cliffhanger, and I'm like, yep, that'll leave some people like, why'd you do that?
Awesome. And the second part of this question is, which kind of relates to the cliffhanger. When did you know when book 1 was finished?
Like I said, the cliffhanger. So like emotion, right? So you know how you read and you're on that emotional roller coaster with any given book, and then you have
Mhm.
those peaks and those like low times and the high. And I felt like this event was the climax, and it was kind of all leading up to that as you read the book. And this, it felt like, okay, emotions are peaked. This is what we need to do right here. And once those emotions are peaked, like you think, all right, here we come, pages dwindle down, here we come to the end, and then you're like, all right, let me just wait, what? you know
Mm.
so that was my thought process right there.
Nice. Very, very nice. And now, Nicholas, we now arrive at the final question of this amazing author interview. Now, as a recap, so in this interview, you talked a lot about your experiences as an author, what you've learned about yourself as a creative person when writing Shatter, your interactions with fellow indie authors in the community, support of friends and family, what you are still learning about what it is to be an indie author, and more, and what writing Shatter and its successor book 2 meant to you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you want readers to take away and pull from Shatter and the rest of the books in the series?
mm, there's probably going to be an underlying theme in the book, of, you may be down, things may seem bad, but that doesn't mean quit, that doesn't mean stop, because you don't know what's around that corner. You know what I mean? Just keep going, just keep pushing. Life gets hard, you're faced with difficult situations that always feel like the end. And then like the title of the book, the main character Shatter goes through some life altering things, but you know at the end of the day, life moves on, and you got to move on, and you got to keep pushing, and you never know what's going to come. If you quit, nothing's coming. But if you don't quit, we always got tomorrow.
Beautifully said, Nicholas. Beautifully said. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this amazing author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Mr. Nicholas Wolfe for coming on the show, making his official debut. Now, Nicholas, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect, order themselves a copy of Shatter? And as a bonus question, will you be doing any in-person signings or events throughout the year?
So you can find me at the Precursors Official. That is my tag on every social media. The Precursors Shatter can be found anywhere that books are sold, courtesy of Ingram Spark. So when we did that, you can find it anywhere. Amazon is usually the one people choose to go to, but you can find it anywhere. And about the book signings and events, if they let me wear this mask right here, then yeah, I'll do it. But if they don't, then I probably won't. I have no desire to be famous. If this, goes that route, it may not ever go that route, and I'm okay with that, because I write for me more than I write for other people. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, because I love every single one of the people
Right.
that support me and show love to my books and enjoy the books. But like I was saying earlier, I got a story to tell, and I'm going to tell it. It's therapy for me to get this out, and I love writing more than anything that I've ever done before in my life. So but yeah, that said, I don't want to be famous. I just want to tell really good stories, and if you guys enjoy them, that makes my heart so happy. So
Awesome.
book signings only if they let me wear this thing.
All right. All right. I'll link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And if you'd like to see Nicholas back on the show again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And once again, viewers and listeners, thank you so much for watching and joining us for another incredible author interview here on the channel. A huge thank you to Mr. Nicholas Wolfe for coming on the show, making his official debut. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everybody.